Time doesn't erase murder. It just hides it better. They said the case was closed. They said no one was watching. But someone always is. This is Santana True Crime.
Welcome to Santana True Crime. There is a cost that comes with a life in law enforcement. Sometimes that cost is obvious. It's the danger. It's missing holidays and birthdays. It's putting on a badge and accepting that there are situations where you have to run towards something everyone else is running away from. But there are other costs that aren't nearly as visible. It's the things you see that you can't unsee. It's losing people you work beside. It's bringing pieces of the job home with you, even when you don't realize you're doing it. And for an undercover officer, that sacrifice can go even further. You can lose your name, your identity, and for a period of time, almost your entire life outside the job. But there is also something incredibly honorable about being able to look back on your life and know what you did mattered. That there are people who may be alive today because you were willing to make those sacrifices. Tonight's guest has lived that kind of career. Matt Pitcher spent more than 2 decades in law enforcement, beginning with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department before eventually continuing his career in Florida. Along the way, he lost friends in the line of duty, infiltrated organized crime, lived deep undercover among people who could have killed him if they discovered who he really was, infiltrated a group associated with potentially domestic terrorism plot, received the Medal of Valor, investigated homicides, and even helped crack the case of a suspected serial killer. This isn't just a story about undercover police work. It's about service, sacrifice, family, health, and figuring out who you really are when your career is defined by so much of your life. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Matt, you've lived such an incredible career. I've had you on before, but I wanted to have you back on because as soon as I left, I had so many more questions, and we didn't even get to talk about your time in Florida. We're laughing about this before the show, how we did 2.5 hours, and that was a condensed version. But today, we're just going to go.
Sounds great. I like it.
I wanted to start out with, how did you get into law enforcement, and did you have anyone that inspired you?
So I got into law enforcement typical way. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a spy. And then as I got older, you find out that spies actually only write paperwork for the most part. They do a lot of paperwork and they don't get to do any of the fun stuff. Like I always thought like I could be a spy and just disappear in other countries and infiltrate and do all this cool stuff. And then I actually talked to a spy. And I was like, yeah, we do a ton of paperwork, which you do in law enforcement too, but not quite as much. And they spend about 90% of their time behind a desk. So I was like, all right, you know what? I think I'm gonna find a different route. My brother then became a law enforcement officer before I did. And he started talking to me about, people he helped, foot chases he got in. All that. I was like, man, that sounds so cool. And at the time I was actually trying to get into acting some, and I loved it. I absolutely loved acting. But I decided at that point that, this is my chance. I'm going to go. I applied to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. And as you know, it is a long process to get hired as an officer. It's not an overnight type thing. So I put into Charlotte. I got accepted. I had to do my psych, which I got. When I did my psych, I got marginal on my psych, which probably is not a good sign. But I had to sit down with a psychiatrist for a day. Then they said, okay, you're good. And then I had to meet with the recruiter. He asked me, well, what do you want to do in the police department? And I want to be undercover. I want to do SWAT, and I want to be a chaplain. And says, well, I get 2 out of 3 all the time, but the chaplain, you're kind of throwing me for a little bit. But got past that, got in the academy, and I had from the moment I was in the academy, my whole goal was to be able to go undercover, to get into what's called Vice and Narcotics. That's the undercover unit. So worked my butt off in the academy. Got fortunate to be able to go to what district was called David 3 in Charlotte, and that was considered, quote unquote, the worst district. And for me, it was the best district. It's the one where you're going to be, for lack of a better word, and I probably shouldn't say this, but running and gunning. Foot chases almost every single night, fight some, but working a lot of dope, and also working a lot of violent crime and getting to help a lot of people. So I got there, and it was so much fun. Like, as a rookie, it was perfect. Especially a young kid. I was 23 at the time, I think, right around 23. And so every night I got to get out, get in foot chases, do all that kind of stuff. Another part of it that was super rewarding and educational was the opportunity to actually sit on, this is considered the worst area. And I would go up and sit on the porch with usually elderly ladies and just have some of the greatest conversations. And it was such a learning curve. It's one of those things that you kind of remember forever, and it was awesome. After I was one for this is horrible. After I finished my FTO training, for I was about 6 months after that, I'm gonna guess, I did what you should never do. And anybody that's listening to this, if you are a rookie officer, do not do this. Because I wanted so badly to go undercover, I had a sergeant at the time who probably wasn't the sharpest tool. And this was when the SARA projects were real big. Scan. Oh boy, I'm not going to get all the acronym, but basically
Analyze,
respond, and assess, right?
Right.
Did I get it?
Yes.
So they were real big at times. So I came up with a big one. Obviously, my district had street corner drug problem. So I wrote it up that I was going to go plainclothes undercover and have a marked unit close by. I would attempt to buy narcotics, usually $20 crack rocks, from these people, and then the marked unit would come up and make an arrest so that we could clear street corners and make the community safer for everybody. Obviously, my real goal was just do undercover. I had no undercover training, hadn't even really been taught anything, and just figure, well, I'm going to wing it and figure it out as I go.
So hold on. So you're a young guy.
Oh yeah.
You're a young white guy. And do you look like the typical rookie officer with like the gel in his hair and very clean cut?
So not the gel in the hair. I had very short hair though. It was the high and tight haircut.
Okay.
So yeah, like not someone that you typically think of doing undercover. And I think like the first night out, I think I probably got laughed at every single street corner.
Did you ask to buy illegal drugs?
I wasn't quite that bad. I, at least from working the district, I knew the terminology from talking to the guys, and working enough dope that I knew what to call it. Like, hey, can I get $20 rock? That kind of thing. Or like, I think I didn't probably that night, but later I learned that I should probably always ask for the white girl, because that's the powder, because people aren't too quick to believe I'm smoking crack, more likely to believe I'm going to use powder. Anyway, so I almost got robbed that night, or pretty sure I did. I pulled down, and I had one group that was willing to talk to me. Everybody else waved me off. And so I pulled past him a little bit. One guy was jogging up pretty close on the passenger side, and I saw two more trying to sneak around to the driver's side. Luckily, I saw it at the last minute and then took off, and just had my marked unit come in and try to get out with them, but they had already bolted. But for those of you who don't know, when they try to surround your car like that, they come on both sides, yeah, you're going to get jacked.
So no formal training. You're just winging this. But it sounds like you're on a good squad with some hard chargers and supervisors that are giving you a lot of latitude.
So, yeah, I had the squad I was on, the group of guys I worked with were probably the best, definitely the best I've ever worked with. And I would, like, my one FTO, he wasn't actually on that squad, but was in the same district. To this day, he's the best street cop there is. His name is Andy Rice. Hands down, the best street cop ever. That guy's was phenomenal. He's retired now, and we still keep in contact. But the way he handled things on the street, the way he did things, the way he knew everybody, it's exactly what you want your street cop to be. Like, it's just perfect. So I didn't give up after that first night. I kept at it and actually got to a point where I was able to be able to do some undercover work and this thing like that. And when I started having success at it, then people took notice, as always, and I was able to eventually, not right away, but weave myself into basically it was a street crime position / community coordinator. But my only goal was my only job was to go undercover and also work informants and get search warrants. And I think at the height of my time in that district, I was writing about 3 search warrants a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And question about that, because so when I was working, we would write the search warrant, but then our SWAT team, we called it SCU, they would have to be the ones that serve it. But for a brief period, when I was on, we called it a strike team, they allowed us to serve some of the low risk search warrants. Are you the ones actually serving them, or are you utilizing a SWAT team?
No, so this was the early 2000s. And again, I think today things are much different, and I like the tactics today way better. But we were serving them. We were doing dynamic entries constantly. Not thankfully, we had some bad things happen, but we never lost one of us in that. It was it was definitely a crazy time. Like, for anybody that doesn't know, when you're doing dynamic search warrants, basically that's where you kick in the front door and you're clearing that house in a hurry. Reason being is you don't want people to destroy evidence, and you try to keep people from doing dumb things. Is pretty much the method behind it. I think nowadays it's very much more of a call everybody out and take your time. And I think for the most part that usually works a lot better. Or like you said, SWAT team comes in and handles it with all the special weapons and fun toys like flashbangs and all that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing when you're a young officer, because we did a lot of the same things. And actually had a friend over at the house after he was involved in a shooting. And we were talking about, like, man, I'm surprised we didn't get killed with some of the stupid shit we did over the years. Because it was the same thing where it'd be like, you know what, screw it. And back then, I started in 2006, and it was still very much, you flooded a room, which was brought down from the military.
Yeah.
Where the military, the rules of engagement are a lot different, and they've got a lot more equipment, not a pistol and a baton and a flashlight.
Yeah.
And so, those tactics, and it was always the win by aggression, like overwhelm them with your force, which works well a lot of times until it doesn't.
But not every time.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, like I said, I mean, I think the tactics today, it's one of those things when I first started hearing about how things were changing or seeing how things were changing, it's kind of like, boy, I don't know if I like, how it is. I mean, police officers are the worst. We don't like change at all. We really don't. But
exactly.
That is one where I was like, yeah, there are certain changes that I'm still not in favor of. That is one I think, that's saving everybody a lot of, saving officers' lives and also making things a lot less crazy, to say the least. I still remember my very first search warrant. I was in training. It was Vice showed up and said, "Hey, we need someone in uniform to be the first one through the door." And my FTO was like, "Well, you need to check this off your list, so you're up." So jump in the van with Vice and narcotics and just run through the front door. No idea what I'm doing.
They just gave you a ram and told you.
But no, somebody else had the ram. Somebody hit the door, and then I'm yelling police and running through in uniform. I think I ran clear to the back of the house and tackled somebody.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, on a serious note, there are those fun times you can look back and laugh at, but you also had a tragedy happen on your squad with the loss of Sean Clark and Jeff Shelton.
Yeah, that was really, really hard.
Can you tell us about what happened with that? And these guys are on your squad, and so, right?
Yeah.
So this is like a small brotherhood that you're a part of.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, the night before this happened, Sean had come up to me and was asking me if I'd teach him the dope game, and maybe how to do undercover and that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, absolutely. We'll get started on it next week. And what had happened, they went and responded to a domestic violence call. And there was a knucklehead, a coward, out front of the place running his mouth when they showed up. They went in, handled the domestic, made sure everything was okay, came back out to talk to him, and he was gone. And then basically they drove out, and then they come back a little while later on another call. And I don't remember the full story, whether he was the one who called or not. But anyway, he waited till they were coming back out, and then he was behind a building and literally came up behind the two of them quietly and shot them both in the back of the head. Total coward. Just unbelievable. And we were at the hospital all night. Like, one of the most unfortunate, vivid memories I think I have is watching their wives show up.
Yeah.
And at that point, they were keeping at least one of them alive, even though he wasn't conscious. They keep him alive so his wife could say goodbye. And just the week that followed that was the worst, in another way, most heartwarming week I've had in law enforcement. I am a very laid back person. Like, one thing I'm pretty proud of, actually, is you can't upset me on the job. You feel free to call me whatever you want. I've been in fights and laughed at the guy right afterwards, as he sit there in handcuffs and try to say, I could whoop you after he just took an L. I've been in foot chases where the guy that I was chasing, he and I would sit there and laugh together afterwards. And, hey, man, you almost had it this time. You almost got away. Nothing, those kind of things never bother me. I even, I've been shot at. I had a guy who almost had me. He tried to kill me. He shot at me with a pistol, but he got his thumb in the hammer, and his thumb saved my life, or he would have had me because he had it in my head. But, handled the business there, but still didn't have anger. That following week, after they were shot, obviously, you know how it is. One of the gangbangers used opportunity to say he got what he was coming to, or they got what that was coming to him. I went over to him, whispered in his ear, said, if you're such a tough guy, I will take my badge and belt off right now, and we can go toe to toe. This is the only time in my career I've ever done that. And I don't justify that. I don't like that. But I always look back because that's the one time that I lost my cool.
How long was this after?
It was the week after, it was the week.
Did Charlotte give you any time off? Or
They did. They covered several of our shifts. Well, like, for me, it was a lot. Like, they didn't have to cover because at that time I was on the street crimes unit. So there wasn't, I wasn't working the street as is, but they had Adam 3 and Adam 2, I believe, covering our district while we took some time. They actually were really good about that. The captain I had in David 3, Captain Hummel, was a fantastic guy. Like, there's nothing she wouldn't do for her people.
Good.
Like, she was hands down one of the best ever. And I still keep in contact with her today.
And were you married at the time?
I was, yeah.
How did your wife, after, I can't imagine telling my wife that happened, and then what was her reaction to it? Was she wanting you to get out of law enforcement? Was she scared for you? I meant, that's gotta.
Yeah, she was great. And I will say, like, I joke about it that she can't divorce because she's had every opportunity in the world before we were married to get out, to see how crazy things were. Like, I came home, I got in a foot chase one night with a guy. He actually had a shotgun off in his pants, or whatever. Middle of January, tackled a guy, get in a fight. and the guy is sweating profusely, middle of January, freezing outside. So I knew something was wrong, but figured it was, drug related. I get home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I go completely paralyzed. Like I'm in bed. First I have one leg go paralyzed. I wake her up and it's like, hey, something's wrong. My leg just went paralyzed. Of course, she was like, just go to sleep. And then my other leg went completely out. I was like, all right, something's seriously wrong. I can't move. And long story short, I had meningitis and Guillain-Barré. I can't prove it, but most likely I got it from that guy. It's the only thing that makes any sense whatsoever. But yeah, it caused me to go paralyzed in like 2 minutes. So I had that incident where we weren't married yet, but together. I was talking to her on the phone one time and got in a foot chase. So she heard that whole thing. And then I had gotten in a fight one night, and we ended up with a whole bunch of broken glass fighting. And so my whole arm was like bandaged up from stuff. So that was before we got married. I had an exposure where I was searching a guy's suitcase and I just had the latex gloves on. As you know, that's a big mistake. Going through the book bag, and like I patted on the outside first, didn't feel anything, put my hand in, and I sliced my finger. He had a razor blade in there.
Oh.
And I asked, I look at the razor blade and it looked like it had blood on it. I'm like, no, this can't be. I said, what do you use this for? And he goes, I use it to cut corns off my feet.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm like, no. So he had never been tested. He agreed to get tested. And he comes back, he has AIDS. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So of course I had to go through the whole thing. Which, as you know, is not fun. So she went through that before we were married. The night we were supposed to get engaged, I had a beautiful thing planned for New Year's Eve. I was actually going to be out front. Like I got her friend to throw a party, and the whole purpose of the party, get them there. And at New Year's, they were going to go outside to set off fireworks, and I was going to be on a knee outside with the ring to propose. Yeah, I got in a shooting that night. Didn't even make it, or got shot at. Like there was a whole melee thing. So I ended up messing that all up. So again, she had every opportunity in the world to see what it was going to be like. So I was kind of super proud to have her as a wife when Sean and Jeff died, because we had several officers that it was their first night on the job. Like they were with their FTO.
Oh, wow.
And she took it amongst herself to reach out to their wives, to talk to their wives. Like we had on the way to the funeral, we were on a bus, like as a families, and she would talk to them and kind of explain things. Because one wife was at first pretty adamant that her husband was going to have to leave law enforcement, that she can't do this. And my wife's name is Retta. She actually talked her off the edge and kind of like, hey, this is the worst of the worst. Not that it can't happen, not that it doesn't happen, but this is it. You're starting with the worst of the worst. And that there are a lot of great moments in the job too, for the family, in a sense, that it is, everybody's a family, especially when you're in a tight knit district like that. It's one giant family. So yeah, I've been very fortunate.
So you go through that experience, and we appreciate their service and sacrifice beyond words. You get into more undercover work. And how do you obviously you get better at this. You're not asking for illegal drugs. You're making your way up the food chain, right? How do you progress into the organized crime world?
So, and Sean and Jeff was kind of, I don't want to say a wake up call for me, but I loved David 3 and the work I was doing. I mean, I was having so much fun. As a young kid, it was just perfect. And so I don't want to say complacent, but I got stuck. Like I hadn't put in the vice and narcotics. The goal and the dream I had, I kind of put on a back burner because I was having so much fun. And when they were killed, that was sort of the wake up that, hey, you don't know how long you've got to do this job. Things happen every single day, and I need to chase that dream. And so I turned around, I put in for Vice and Narcotics at their next opening. at first I didn't get it, but then they turned around and opened up another spot for me, and I got it. And that was the difference between what I was doing and then going to vice and narcotics. So with the district, it was all, street level stuff. You would I'd buy from the corners, or I'd try to buy from houses to get a search warrant, or I'd use an informant. It was all that kind of thing. When you go to vice and narcotics, it opens the whole world. Basically, you're working for the entire county, and you work every type of crime. That's a lot of things people don't realize, that a true vice and narcotics unit will work literally every type of crime there is, murder to fraud, you name it, because every single crime can use undercover at some point or another, or even surveillance and that kind of thing. I always, and homicide guys hate this, but I always say your narcs are usually the most knowledgeable when it comes to case law and everything else, because you have to work every type of crime, and you learn, I don't like to say we live in the gray area, but we know what we can and cannot do to the T, and use that to our advantage. That's the whole point of the unit. And with every department, your vice and narcotics unit are the black sheep. I kind of enjoy that in a sense. It's the one that every department knows they need it. Not a single one wants to admit they have it or like them. And there's reasons for that. One, when we're in vice and narcotics, most of the time we look like we're not officers. We look like your biker gang or your crazy people. There was yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what you look like when you're undercover. That's actually my arrest photo. So, yes. Yeah, you don't look like a cop at all. And so it's hard for departments to get around that. And if you think about it, we create stats, right? Every police department does not want stats. You want to say we have low crime, and our whole job is to up that number. So there's some issues of why that happens. But so once I got the vice and narcotics,
so Abby says you have 3 minutes before they make you.
Yeah, that's. I wonder which one she's talking about. I know what she's talking about. This is I can't talk on the phone for more than 30 minutes because my brain does not handle it well.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so when I got the vice and narcotics, it's basically like starting over in some sense. You're with an FTO for a period of time. You have to do some testing. You have to learn some new case law and do all of that and get your feet wet and prove that you can do the job. And on top of having FTO, they'll make you do some crazy things. I had to go to a mall and get they point out 3 people or whatever and say, hey, get 3 phone numbers. And you can't do it like you're trying to hit the person. You have to come up with the most unusual ways to get that phone number.
That's interesting.
Always think outside the box because they want you to be able to think on your feet quickly and be successful. And that's what Undercover is about, because you don't know how things are going to go on every single bot you go on. They get different. They come out different.
So do you get approached about going after these bigger cases, or how do you start working, going after the Greek mob?
So, just be really, really stupid. So the short of it is I get to vice and narcotics. I worked a gangster disciple case, and then playing football, I tore my ACL. And so I was out for I think it was 5 months, which wasn't all bad because they put me in the Y room with the DEA. And so there's a real learning experience there too, which was pretty cool. But as you know, you go away for 5 months like that, your informants either go to jail, find a new handler, they move on. And so you get out and you're like, oh crap, I got nothing. So obviously I'm on that phone trying to hit anybody up, and anybody I was buying dope from before, because narcotics and undercover work is all about feast or famine. If you can't get your foot in that door quickly, it can be very scary and very lonely. And so I was getting shut down, and one of the last buys I had done before I got hurt was from a stripper. And I was like, well, let's just try it. But I'd only done one buy. I thought for sure there was no way she would remember me. So I call her up. She remembered me. I asked if I can buy an 8-ball, which is just a small amount of cocaine. She's like, yeah, no problem. So she tells me where to meet her. And basically what car she's going to be in, all this. Right from the start, is a little unusual for your typical dope buy. When you're buying dope, everybody's nervous because obviously one could be the police. Also, robbery is a real big thing. So she takes me to one of the richest parts of Charlotte, is where she wants to do the buy. Turns out it's only like less than a mile, less than half a mile from where her condo is. So she comes over, she's driving a vehicle, literally parks right next to me, gets out, gets in my vehicle. And normally drug deals happen like that. Like nobody wants to stick around, right? You do this buy, get out.
Right.
So she's got the Coke in a Newport cigarette box. Not surprising. Hands it to me. I give her the money, and then she just wants to start talking. Like she's in school, telling me about that. I'm like, what the heck is happening right now? This is not how this is supposed to go. I do take the opportunity. I'm like, hey, and I think I told her this on the phone then again later, but this isn't normal for me. I'm kind of just testing water. I buy larger amounts. So eventually she leaves. I end up calling her while later, say, hey, stuff was good. What do you say about 2 ounces? And she says, well, I'll contact my supplier. I'll let you know. I had a good idea of who her supplier was, which is somebody I really, really wanted. That's why I was buying from her before I got hurt, or why I did one buy from her before I got hurt. She hits me back, says, yeah, 2 ounces is no problem. Perfect. So normally, and we always called it a yak. And basically that's where you meet with the person that you're going to be doing a drug deal with before you do the drug deal. And it's kind of to get everybody comfortable, to explain, this is how we're going to do it. This is who's going to be there. So everybody's happy. It takes a little bit of the nerves off. So I say, hey, let's meet up and talk. Do you have a place you want to go beforehand that we can meet? And then we'll do the drug deal another day. And she says, yeah, meet me at this restaurant right next to where we did the first drug deal. All right, cool. Get to the restaurant. It is a nice restaurant. I'm like, what the, I don't really mind because it's city funds. I'm not paying for it. I'm going to get a free meal. So whatever. So I sit down, I sit outside so my close cover units can see me, and waiting for her to arrive. And the only thing, all right, we see her car. She's pulling up. She had a very distinctive car. She pulls up, gets out, and she is wearing a long, very nice white dress. It takes less than a second for all the text messages to start flooding my phone. You're on a date. You're using city funds to go on a date. I'm like, what? And I can't see her yet. So I'm like, what the heck is everybody talking about? And then I catch a glimpse. I'm like, oh, crap.
Is it one of these girls?
It is. Not the one that I have my arm around in that picture, but the one with the red dress.
Oh, okay. Rough job.
Yeah. I do what I can. So because, obviously, if she likes me, dope deal, we're going to be in trouble. I'm going to have to figure out another way around this anyway. I do what I should have never done, even though it pays off. Again, sometimes better lucky than good. Some of the stuff I say, don't ever do this stuff. But I decided to start having fun and take this as far as I can in terms of, I tell her I'm a billionaire, playboy, all this other stuff, that I just fly in the Charlotte sun. My sister's here. Except I don't think I say my sister at this point. But anyway, just that I come into Charlotte and that I've got all this money and just test it. And she bought it hook, line, and sinker. The most outrageous, dumb story in the world, and she bought it. The only thing that was that I would have said normally is I told her I was an orphan, because I always use that because you can't check it. But she believed it. She agrees to do the 2 ounces. I meet with my sergeant and a couple of detectives afterwards. I'm like, this is great, but how are we going to make a play on this if she's thinking that we're going to start dating? And she gave me a kiss on the cheek at the end. So there's no question of where she wants this to go. So I believe it was my sergeant who came up with it. It was like, well, why don't we give you a sister who can be there with you and be able to say, hey, nothing happened. They were separated, kind of thing. So one of my best friends, who's a female detective, and she's unbelievable undercover, one of the best. She came with me, and we do the 2 ounce buy, and I don't have my sister there on that one, just because everything, we had close cover. I ended up taking the money to her at a place she worked, a dessert bar. She was out front, took the money, and I walked away. So everybody could say, yeah, we had eyes on him the whole time. And then picked up the dope later. After that, she calls me and says, hey, a friend of mine is having a birthday party at a new club. Why don't you come? And thinking that the supplier might be there, we say, okay. And that's when my sister gets introduced in. We pick her up, the other undercover and I, Casey. We go to the party, and that's when everything changes. I still remember walking in the door, and Casey and I look at each other after looking around and being like, holy crap, what did we just stumble into? Like, the look on our faces, I'm surprised they didn't throw us out, because I think my jaw literally dropped. It was almost like going to what you would assume any mob party would look like.
So is this kind of
That
what we're
is
picturing?
a little bit, yeah. Matter of fact, the gentleman that's on the other side of the girl there with me is Marcos, and he's the one who introduces me into the Greeks. So we go to this party. The supplier does turn out to be there, but I don't even really get to associate at all with him at this party. But I get to talk to Marcos a lot, and Marcos likes to brag. He's the architect for the Greeks for all their clubs. And he's known as Marcos, friend of the Greeks. That's how he's referred
Can
to.
you explain that to people that are unfamiliar with how this works? So you said the Greek mafia is essentially controlling the clubs in downtown Charlotte.
Yeah, pretty much every aspect of downtown Charlotte.
And how are they doing that generally?
So everything through bribes on down. Not to fast forward too much, but that case ended with the mayor of Charlotte being arrested for accepting bribes.
So they're bribing city officials for like license and controlling who cannot open up a bar in downtown Charlotte.
And they use extortion, and they've also got people in powerful positions that are part of their organization. They've literally got tentacles, it seems like, everywhere. So it's just complete control. And they literally, so in Charlotte, they would say, the way Marcos would explain it is, you have three options if you want to open up a club or a bar. You can go to the Greeks, you can go to the Italians, or you have to have a celebrity on the payroll. That's the only way it's going to happen. And he gave examples for all of the above. And since he was close to the Greeks, like not that first night, of course, but as we got closer, he's like, you're going to go through the Greeks, you're going to pay me $5,000, and then you pay the Greeks $5,000, and you get to meet some of them. And this is kind of a very long process. He says it's not an overnight thing, but this is the way it works. And he says, you got to understand that, this isn't New York where, the Italians have this area, other people have this, or this family has this area, this family has that area, this family has that. There doesn't work like that. There's just pretty much, if you're uptown, it's going to be Greek, but you can be side by side. Like there was even one spot where Greeks would have one building and Italians had another side by side. And that was allowed.
And so is your department just having no problems writing these checks, or?
I guess I don't know exactly. I think about what I can and cannot say. There were definitely people in my department that were connected without question, and I know that for a fact. I won't.
That they were connected to the Greeks?
Yeah, and that they were bought and paid for.
Was that something that was suspected going into this?
No. So, and I don't know if I was not like I said it many times. Like I don't know if I was naive. I don't know if I was stupid or what. But I grew up outside. I grew up in middle Pennsylvania, just outside of Harrisburg, and I grew up in a town that was very, very small in the country. Like 100 people, I think, lived there. Out of the 100 people, they always joke that there were more horses than people in this small town. That was very close to a couple of big cities, but not big cities, but Harrisburg, New York, but very small. In this small town, there were 15 different pizza shops for 100 people. So the whole, like, I learned quickly that pretty much there's all mobbed around. So I was very familiar with the mob. My parents worked logistics for a trucking company, and obviously there's always some mob influence in there as well. But I never for the life of me thought Charlotte had any mob. Like, I never even dawned on me. And I even had a hard time believing it at first in this case. Like, it took me a while. I mean, I started doing a lot of research on my own and looking up, people that I was meeting, and I was like, holy crap. And then when the law enforcement side of things came in, because it was more than one person that looked like, I can remember at one point just getting sick to my stomach. Not like figuratively, literally, to the point of throwing up. And part of it was at that point fear. I didn't think a ways into the case, I didn't think I was going to make it out alive. Like, it just didn't seem possible. Just because there's no, like, I was literally, the whole thing, don't pee in your backyard.
Right.
I was literally peeing all over my backyard. Like, how do you not get caught? And I still to this day don't know how I ended up not getting caught in the whole thing. But, the FBI got involved pretty quick, and I got where I was isolated from everybody and everything. The only people I hung out with were bad guys. And don't get me wrong, like, I had Marcos and I had a great relationship. Like, he had 2 daughters. They would literally call me if they had problems. If they needed a ride, they might call me. It was a little bit painful that way. Like, both Marcos and another guy I call Mikey, who was connected to the Italians, who was actually the supplier that I was going after. He and I got really close. I will never forget going to a party where he was taking a large amount of drugs to the party, and it was one of the few times I was driving, and he says, "Hey, I need to put my bag. I have a bunch of dope in it, in your trunk." And he says, "Look," and he takes his wallet. I says, "I'm going to put my driver's license in the bag with the dope," which you never ever do, right? He says, right. "I'm doing that because if we do get pulled over, there's no way they can put it on you because my driver's license." Like, that's the kind of relationship we had.
So, like, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, you've got this relationship with a stripper. I say relationship, you're working her, and she's starting to introduce you, but you're a cop who's going home to his family at night. And at some point, people are going to be expected to see where you live, a car that you drive, those type of things. So does the department set you up with like an apartment to use, or how does that work?
Department FBI takes care of all
FBI.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
the FBI gives you an apartment to use as like your fake place, and you're not even seeing your family at this point, or
correct.
rarely.
Yeah. And I actually spend pretty much all my time with usually Marcos, even sleeping at his place.
Okay.
So that was kind of the main thing. Because part of it was the apartment was outside of town, and it was near the airport because that's quote unquote where I fly in and out of, supposedly. So it was kind of all the backstopping went that way. But that's the hardest part about deep cover is it's always a risk anytime trying to see your family. So it just becomes not worth it. And the second case was way, way worse. Just because then phone calls weren't an option. Like, it was.
But with this case, you started out buying 2 ounces. Are you working your way up, or what do you?
That was my hope. So this case takes a turn. Basically, so I'm introduced to Marcos, right? Still working Mikey, but building this relationship with Marcos. And Marcos, I can tell, is in the dope game. Number one, by the females hanging around him and stuff like that. And the fact that they'll go to him and then I'll see him go to the bathroom and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, he's got something, because obviously when that happens, he's giving them something to, yeah, exactly. And you can't tell from that picture, but Marcos is quite a bit older than all of us. So getting to know Marcos one night, I bring up that, hey, a lot of my money isn't coming legit. And I've got connections to dope other places. And he brings up that he could get me better deals than anything I'm getting, that he could guarantee. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And so he's like, yeah, no. And then he explains that he's from Bolivia, and he's still got family there, and they are connected to the president of Bolivia. And he said DEA just got kicked out of Bolivia. And he starts showing pictures to me to prove it. And he's telling the truth. So he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, could you handle doing 50 kilos every other week, flying it into Charlotte? I'll provide the plane. He's like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, let's meet tomorrow and we'll work out all the logistics. So I am ecstatic that night. Like this, we're at a strip club when we're talking about this. I'm on cloud nine. I get out of there, tell my sergeant, tell Casey. I'm like, this is gold. DEA is going to be involved in it. I'm so ecstatic. We meet the next day for lunch. Orders a bottle of wine. And as we're talking about it, he says, yeah, we're going to open up 2 clubs. One will be your nice club to make everybody happy, because the Greeks are really going to want you to have a nice club. And then you can also open up a hole in the wall dirty club. And we can keep the cocaine there and use that as a distribution point. Sweet. And then he goes, all right, we're going to pay off this person, and this person to make sure we're not touched. And he named some political figures and all that. At that point, I was like, well, crap. It's like, all right, this case is getting better and better. Finish the meeting, meet with my sergeant and an ATF guy and a DEA. And ATF guy, I still remember, makes a phone call and says, come on, you're coming with me. And he called the FBI, because they get complete jurisdiction the minute political corruption is involved. So I go to FBI office, and that's when things officially changed. They took complete control of the case. The only person that had any contact through my department was my sergeant, who took a huge risk because my chief was not being told what I was doing. And my sergeant just kept it all to himself.
That's good for him, though, that he's looking out for you, because
yeah, I owe that guy everything, literally. Because if he had gotten scared any minute and told, number one, I'd probably ended up dead.
And before we go on, I've just got to ask, this is a good question. Just being honest, I would have really a hard time trusting my husband, who has a fake apartment and is dating strippers. Are you able to communicate any of this to your wife? Like, does she have any idea of the level of stuff that you're doing?
So, no, I'm not supposed to tell my wife anything. But yes, I actually told her everything. I think that was part of it actually was from another detective prior to me who infiltrated the outlaws.
Yeah.
And he talked about he didn't tell his wife anything. He followed protocol and didn't tell her anything. And he blamed that for costing the marriage. So that was part of my reason. Like, I wanted to be completely honest with her all the way through. And whoever put that, I totally get where they're coming from and completely understand. I've been very fortunate that we, have a very trusting relationship, and she trusts me through it. I can't really, I've said in both undercover cases that reality is, especially the second case, more than even this one, she's the hero in the whole thing. Because the second case, I wouldn't have finished the case if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Because that's I know where you're going to go with that. But so you're at the point where the FBI is taking over, which is probably the best thing for your safety anyway, to not involve your department, right?
Yes. Yeah. And the people that first took the case were, like, the first agents I worked with were awesome. But the case, I guess, kind of developed and other people got involved and it went sideways, in my opinion. but no, like, yeah. And the fact is, when I talked to the FBI and then what we're talking about, like from day one, it was, I need to get out of this case. Like, we need to find someone, from the deep cover program to replace me that doesn't live here, because I will end up dead and the case will end up burned. Uh, like, there's no way I'm not going to be sooner or later. Like, because I had two very, very close instances where I should be dead, because I got spotted when I was out. One was another officer who knew me and, you know, unfortunately did not follow SOP and came up and started trying to talk to me. And I was right beside Mikey at the time, who, if he, like, thank goodness Mikey liked me so much because he would have had me killed in a heartbeat.
Did the
But
officer call you by your first
yeah,
name?
yeah. And even said, you work for CMPD, right? Which obviously, anytime you add PD to anything, everybody in the world knows what you're talking about.
Right.
Thankfully, Mikey looked at him and said, dude, he doesn't fucking know you. Get away. Like, those were his exact words. Like, oh, thank you, Mikey. Mikey to the rescue. And then another time at a party, with pretty much a who's who type party, I'm with Mikey, and somebody that I went to high school with recognized me. And, like, yeah, of all places, right? I went to high school up in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I knew she might be there. She had a little bit of celebrity status, because she was on a show for a little bit. And it's funny because I've talked to her since this. And we, like, just kind of messages back and forth. And she hasn't put it together. Like, she can't figure it out yet. But anyway, she's at this party, and I hear her call my name in another room once. Like, had gone to get a beer, and I hear my real name, and I was like, oh, crap. But luckily, Mikey was back in the media room, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hang with Mikey in the media room the whole night, because it's a really big house. And that's where he was doing stealing from. So I go, it's like, it's in the back. Like, when I say media room, it's like a theater. Like I said, huge house. So it's back in the, like, up a bunch of stairs, kind of, or whatever you call that, stadium seating in the back. So I go sit down with them. And it couldn't have been 5 minutes. She and two of her friends walk in and sit down right in front of us. And that's when I'm literally thinking, okay, I go down there. There's doors right there. If I can make it to that sliding door and get outside, I might have a chance. If I don't make it to that, I'm done for. And they're whispering right in front of us. And anybody that has a brain in their head would already be gone. Like, I could have easily just made an excuse, hey, I'm going to go use the bathroom, got up and headed that way and just disappeared, right? I mean, that would have been the smartest play. But they're whispering, and finally her friend goes back and starts whispering to him. Well, at this point, I figured it's too late for him to escape now. And once again, Mikey to the rescue. How the fuck would I know? Why don't you just ask him? And blows her off. And she asked me, and she asked, well, where'd you grow up? Well, my story is very close to my actual life in some ways. So, grew up in Pennsylvania, but then, grew up in an orphanage, and that kind of sideways it. But I know she didn't totally believe me, because I saw her jump on Facebook immediate. Luckily, my Facebook had already been locked down completely, or I would have been had. But like I said, Mikey saved my life a couple times. I should really thank. Wow, unfortunately, I think Mikey's dead.
Well.
He went to Brazil to try to make some money and get a better cocaine supply. And he was communicating with me when he was in Brazil, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. And I was like, ooh, that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah, no more Mikey.
Yeah.
So, but things are going well besides those two. And are you able to buy the 50 kilos?
No. Once the FBI is involved, they want nothing to do with it, which was, as it turns out, the smart play, to be fair, because I ended up getting yelled at by the Greeks. One of the head Greeks basically took me aside and said, if I continue to do that, they will have no part with me.
What were they upset about? That you were buying coke, or that?
Yeah. Actually, both Marcos and I got in a little bit of trouble for that. That they do not care for that at all. That is dirty money in their opinion, and that's how you get in trouble.
So it's kind of the old school Italian mob with why John Gotti was supposed to be killed, and he ended up killing Paul Castellano over it.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that if you sold drugs, then that was a death sentence.
Yeah, I believe actually the first one to do it was what's his name? Oh, crap, I just drew like Sonny. Not Sonny. Oh well, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, the one guy from New York. But yeah, and I will. I'm fair. Give credit where credit's due. The Greeks are very methodical and very, very good at what they do, and they kind of fly under the radar because of that. They don't get their hands dirty themselves, except for the extortion type stuff and the bribing and that kind of thing. And they are very careful to get people in key places before they do anything.
Yeah, and that's something that Jennifer brought up, is that I don't think the Greek mafia is like a well-known thing, and that's probably because they stay so low. And I mean, if you're not in the drug game, I think that increases your odds of kind of staying under the radar.
Yeah, I had never heard of the Greek mafia at all. Obviously, Italian mob, very familiar with, or somewhat familiar with. I ended up Googling Greek mob, and I did a little bit of an oh crap moment when I Googled it because, yeah, it turned out it was a real thing. But no, they're extremely, hats off. They know what they're doing. I won't take that away from them. The worst thing that they do that can get them is the gambling stuff. They're very big into that as well.
So does this progress into you opening up your own club? Are they okay with that, and they just don't want to be a part of the drug part?
Correct. Yeah, they firmly want me to open up my own club.
And is that so? That's where the investigation is going, is now more towards political corruption and these bribes that are happening, more white collar.
Correct, 100%. And like I said, my whole job then, number one, at first was to stall the case. I literally had to stall the case for what seemed like I think it was around a year or whatever, so that they could find another undercover to bring in. And that was probably the most terrifying and hardest part, is because you're not really doing anything, but just hang out like every single day and trying to say, oh yeah, everything's great when you're supposed to be doing so. And I'm still wasn't too bad because I was still paying the Greeks and getting all that done, so that was good. And a couple bribery type stuff. But once they finally, they have to open up a group 1 case. That takes forever. Then they get the UC. They have to find the right UC. They get them. Then finally he comes in, and then it takes a while for anybody to want to deal with him, right? To comfortable, and for me to kind of see my way out. It's just a very, very long and tedious process. There was a point there while I was doing the stall part, I was interrogated. This was when I was finally blessed. I was interrogated for 8 hours.
And how does this happen?
So, probably the worst night of my life, or one of them. I shouldn't say that. There's others that are worse, but I get a call from Marcos, and I think I was actually with Mikey at the time, but Marcos calls and he's like, hey, come pick me up. We're going to Sunset. Normal, but I could tell in his voice something wasn't normal. He was short, where this guy is usually laughing and talks nonstop. Pick him up at his condo in the garage area. We go to Sunset. He doesn't say anything in the car, but he keeps getting texts. And I still remember, because it bothered me because he's turning his phone so I can't see it. This isn't his normal behavior. So the red flags are going off. And like I said, he's not talking and he looks stern. Go to Sunset, which is not one of our normal hangouts. So normally when we go there, we just walk, sit wherever we want. Basically, can do whatever we want there. This time we get there, and the hostess is like, I got your spot ready. And immediately another red flag is that isn't how this works. So she takes us to the end of the bar to the side, and we sit there. And there's a room right behind us that literally it's just a curtain off that has all their surveillance stuff and that kind of stuff, like for the cameras for the club and all that. And I know there was somebody in there. I have no doubt about that. And Marcos keeps getting texts. He walks away because he gets a phone call at one point and comes back. He's like, come on, we're leaving. We're going uptown. and it's not saying anything, not drinking, which Marcus is an alcoholic and drinks nonstop. So we leave, we go uptown to what was the epicenter at the time. I still remember we get to the second floor of the epicenter. He gets another call. He says, hold on, walks away, comes back, come on, we're going to my place. And at this point, I know something's wrong. I don't know what. And again, a smarter person would have walked away at that point because it's not worth the risk. But I'm not that person.
Are you debating in your head or playing scenarios like, okay, I may have to kill this guy, or what's going through your thought process?
And if I'm being honest, killing him hadn't reached my head. I kept trying to think of different escapes of how I can get myself out if this goes bad. Debating if I'd leave. I mean, I thought about, do I just, take off right now? And I just, like I said, I'm not that smart. I kept going. So we go to the garage of his condo, and it's a high rise. And so we get in the elevator and go up. And I do remember in the elevator at that point thinking, I may have effed up. Like, there's no turning back at this point. Like, it's done. Whatever's in the game is in the game. Get to his door, and that was probably the lowest moment, because he opens up his door. So keep in mind, I've spent, I don't know how many nights here. All the lights are always on in his place, and every door is always open. Like, it's just the way he is. He opens the door, and it's pitch dark. And so that was clued on what I just knew. He told me to go ahead and he was going to get a bottle of wine to go have a seat on the couch to get comfortable. So you walk in, there's a wall here, kitchen's to the right, and then the living room is straight ahead, and then there's a balcony just past the living room. I walked straight out to the balcony and looked down because I figured I was going to end up going off this balcony at some point. I think part of me, there's a swimming pool about halfway down. And part of me is like, can I hit the swimming pool? And would I live if I hit the swimming pool? Is there any chance? So I think that became my game plan for survival at that point. And then have a seat on the couch. He brings out a bottle of wine, a couple glasses. The door to his bedroom is closed, which if you're in the living room, when you first walk in, the bedroom was off to the left. And I remember, he starts asking me, how do I know who you really are? How do I know you are who you say you are? How do I know you have this money? All this different stuff. And it was a total of maybe 30 questions, but just asking over and over in different ways. And occasionally he'd get a text and he'd go into the bedroom. So, there's people in there. And I was just waiting for the bad thing. And this went on until 6:00 in the morning. And then all he says is, all right, you can go. Doesn't say anything else. I think I was at one point like, what's going on? Did I do something? Why are you so mad at me? Or why are you acting this way? He's like, no, you can just go. Like, no emotion, just nothing. So I walked out and I was still confused. Like, because I thought for sure if I'd said something bad, I was dead, right? And so I go down to my car. They had gone through my car. It was center console was open, stuff thrown. They weren't trying to hide it. I drive away, and I don't know how far I got, but he calls me, and he's like, hey, we're good to go. Like, the switch just back to happy-go-lucky Marcos. And calls me, we go to Uptown Cabaret, the strip club, and he basically, hey, you passed. We're good to go. And that was that. That was the most terrifying night of my life.
So 8 hours of this, and you didn't have any like SEER training or anything like that about interrogations. Are you just trying to keep your composure? And what's his demeanor like during that?
Yeah, for me, it was just try to stay calm, stay steady, and not screw up or say something that's stupid. And just make sure I'm saying the same thing right, just in different ways. His composure, like, it wasn't like he wasn't screaming. It was not, I don't want to say harsh, but just very, like, almost like a forceful, but not upset. Just, how do I know who you say are? Like, just a very demanding, I guess is the best way to say it, type voice. And it never changed. It was the exact tone, same thing the entire night.
Could you tell that they have done a background check on like your name, or because you mentioned earlier you've got political ties, you've got the suspicion that they may have ties in law enforcement. That would be something easy to do, to take your name and plug it in and find out like, who does this person come back to?
And thankfully, I was backstopped at that point. But yes, they did. They ran me several different ways.
And not to get into or not give anything away, but I assume that the FBI, when you say they had backstopped, they had created like a false person, essentially.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I won't go into all specifics, obviously, because I don't want to mess anything up for anybody,
Right.
anybody in danger. But yeah, basically, nothing that's going to say, "Oh, this person doesn't exist" or "This person is lying." Like everything checks out.
Cool. Yeah, because I always wondered of like how organized and how technical these guys are, or is this just they're making sure you sound good?
So, and this is funny. Like, actually, I'll say it. I don't care. Hey, if they followed, and this is both cases, if they followed the rules they had in place, I don't make it. Um, and like, it's so funny how it works. So it took them too long. It took them too long to question me, is what it came down to. Um, like Marcos liked me enough in the beginning to not bother to do it then. So by the time he did it, it was too late. Second case, exact same thing.
And is that because they had invested in you as far as from a business relationship, or like a relationship standpoint where you already knew the players and you already knew um, the criminal involvement at that point?
I think it was actually kind of like, how a lot of parents, when their kid starts to act up or anything like that, they don't want to see it. Like you get this friend, and at this
Right.
point, I was good friends with his daughters and all this. Um, it would have taken a lot. Like he developed complete trust in me very, very fast, and that's what cost him. And the same thing happened in the second one, really, really bad.
So you get this phone call, you've essentially passed. Does that mean that now kind of I assume you let the FBI handlers know that, um, is that, how does that affect the case at that point?
Obviously, that's just for the case wise. That's a good thing. I think it was, I don't know how many nights. Very shortly after that, I officially met some heads of a couple heads of the Greeks, um, which I had seen them before and been at a table with them before, but never heard them talk up until this point. They have some very strict rules in terms of that. They're the head of the Charlotte Greeks. Um, I don't know what it is, but he's the one that's scared. Like he's the parent that you're scared of. Like he has such authority everywhere he goes, and the way other people are around him, and then the way he talks, not mean, nothing like that, but just very matter of fact, and the tone of his voice and everything else. He's the one who he just scared me the most. Like you had the feeling that it wouldn't bother him whatever he had to do. Um, Period. And like I knew that the Greeks had very specific rules. Like if they wanted to kill me, like the other room that night, yes, there were probably Greeks. Yes, there definitely were Greeks in the other room. There would have been a couple Russians in there too. The ones who would have killed me would have been the Russians. They always had the Russians do all their dirty work. Even burglaries. Like every once in a while, there were certain burglaries that needed to happen. It was the Russians that did it. Somebody need to kill for sure. I know of one where they used the Russians for that.
Oh, wow. And just a quick question, and you are working 24/7 at this point?
Oh, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So you're essentially living that life and you're meeting these higher ups. And are you actually starting to open up this club or what's happening?
Very slowly. Obviously, it's being slow walked because that's not my goal. My goal is to get what's going to be called my money man introduced in so I can get out. So Marcus has taken me around, showing me some properties. What plays in my benefit is the Greeks also slow roll this part. Like I still have to pay them and give them their money, and they have to clear things on their end. So kind of we fed each other in that sense. But literally, my whole function during this time was mainly just to hang out and slow roll, so that the connection is stayed until the money man can get there and I can get out. And then he's going to be the one to show the money to do the club and do that kind of thing. Like the club will be under my name, but he's going to be the one to handle it. I'm going back to Chicago.
Gotcha.
That's the whole play. It just takes forever. But then eventually we get him there. Takes a little while to get to the point where they're comfortable with him. And it's first every night he's out with me. Then slowly it's just him, but I'm there by phone until the point where I can finally pretty much be completely cut out, just keep the phone in case they do call at any point. And by that point, once that happens, I meet with the FBI with my sergeant. I'm coming out of the case, and this is when things are going south for me. FBI was like, man, you're going to get so many awards for this case. You have no idea how big this is. And I was like, hold on. I was like, if I have to testify in court, that's my job. I'll do it. But this is a Fed case. We all know 9 times out of 10, Fed cases don't go to court. I said, if I can keep my name clean, I want to keep my name. I don't want awards. I don't want anybody to know I was in part of this because this will affect my life big time. And they're like, oh, crap. Yeah, we didn't think about that. You live here.
Right.
So I didn't have the warm and fuzzies, and neither did my Sarge after that. But
yeah, and that's kind of one of the questions that was asked is, did you ever regret getting involved in this kind of work? Because again, this isn't like you were an FBI agent and they shipped you off to California to work a case as an undercover officer. Your wife and kids live around Charlotte or in Charlotte, and that's where you're going to be going back after this, assuming.
yeah. So this is what I've said afterward. And it's funny because I finished the first case and said, well, I'll never do that again. And I loved the work in a sense. I love the everything about undercover work. Unfortunately, I really, really do. What it does to your personal life is horrific and not worth it. And there's just to keep in mind, what I did is not even done anymore and wasn't even done at that time. I found out later the loopholes to get it to where I could do it. But now they just don't send it whether you just totally disappear like that for that long because it is extremely unhealthy. And I believe that. I know that.
Can you get into more of that? Because, excuse me, I had an itch. That's part of being on the live show. You've got this long period of time where you're away from your family. You're on edge 24/7. Like we're saying earlier, you've essentially become this different person, and then it stops and you go back home and it's like, hey, wife, hey, kids, good seeing you.
Yeah. So when I finished the first game, I came home for 1 month before I left again. So there wasn't a whole lot of time in between. There was basically no time between those two cases. So I hadn't hit that part yet. When I came home after the second case, this is completely irrational. Don't think I don't realize that. I got home and kind of almost assumed everybody's life hit pause because my actual life hit pause, right? Right. So I assumed I come back home, we hit play, and we pick up exactly where we left off the day before I left. And obviously that's not the way things are. And, I had to find a way to fit back into my wife and kids' life. And I had to find out how to be me again. Um, like as dumb as that sounds, it's you. I literally probably for the first at least 2 months when I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have to figure out where I was um, because I was used to waking up at that point in the apartment. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes absolute sense, especially since you had to allow yourself to get to that point for survival.
yeah, and those are the things that were really painful. And the second case, my family was, or I mean, my department was outstanding. They did everything they could to help me, especially when the case was over. Um, like in terms of a therapist, um, they gave me a month off after the case um, to try to, get back into things to let me go to where I wanted to go. Like I got to go to HIDA, DEA, which is what I wanted to do, all that kind of thing. So I can't. I have nothing bad to say about them or even the FBI I worked with in the second case.
Well, let's get into the second case. So you were given a short period off, and then at what point do they approach you about going back undercover?
So, like I said, it'd been about a month, and a buddy of mine in the intel unit approached me. I guess there were rumors or the FBI had heard rumors of a possible bombing at the Democratic National Convention, which was going to be held in Charlotte. Uh, and if I could try to attempt to infiltrate and see what I could find out. They didn't know what group, anything like that. And basically, the way it works is obviously you have, like Greenpeace, RAND, and all these that have meetings. And usually in those are these little outliers of what's called the underground people. And those are the ones who do the bad things. And so I go to a RAND meeting, and keep in mind, first I cram very, very quickly because I know nothing about these groups or anything to try to help me out with this. So I'm trying to learn as fast as I can. And because it's important to know the type, like what's a normal type of person in this? What, am I going to do something that looks stupid? What do I say? What don't I say? Everything like that.
And you know what's funny about this is you went from like hanging out in strip clubs and being around, beautiful women all day and the expensive cars and whatnot to what, like,
Yeah. Yep.
growing your beard out and wearing a dirty shirt.
And that guy in the picture right there with me
Yeah.
wanted to go on tour with me, blowing things up. That was my new life.
Yeah. That's your new life.
Yeah, that's my new life. Yeah, trust me, that's not lost because there was one point where I was sleeping on concrete, and somebody had declared themselves a DJ and was playing some club music. And it was the same club music that I would hear all the time in the first case when I was sitting there drinking champagne or stuff like that, eating surf and turf, where I'm now eating food out of a dumpster 9 out of 10. That, the irony was not lost on me either. So I attend a couple of these random meetings. Like the first one, like I made sure like I was the first one out. All this, didn't talk to anyone. Just from a little bit I could see on the internet that seemed to be personality type. Come back to the second one. The leader makes sure I don't get out without talking to me. So I give him a spiel on this one that I was living on a sailboat in the Chesapeake and came in here for a bit just to get away and was just seeing what's going on in this town action-wise. Not too much more said than that. I think they may have invited me out to Revolutionary Pizza that way, night or either the next one. So go eat with them, start building that friendship. He takes a liking to me and he's like, man, there's someone you got to meet. You guys are going to hit it off. And this person he ends up introducing me to, who becomes my best friend for the next year, and the source of so much pain, Billy. Billy takes a liking and we quickly become best friends. And I can remember the first time I go to Billy's room, his bedroom, his walls are covered in pictures and pictures that he's drawn and photographs of police and police getting set on fire, beat. His drawings were police decapitated, and he was a great artist. The work was really well done. Um, but I had never and have yet since seen such a hatred of police. I mean, hatred of police, and he openly would say how much he hates police. Um, and this guy was also telling me, you know, he was going to teach me how to shoot, that I needed to know how to use a firearm, all this different stuff, which he did. Like he had a farm, well, his parents did, and he taught me how to shoot on that farm without killing me, surprisingly. But he,
That's kind of laughable. So with situations like that, are you like obviously sandbagging it and missing on purpose, or how do you handle that?
so if I had to do over again, I think I would have said I know how to shoot. I ain't got to gone ahead and gone that route. I think that was, and I could be wrong, but that, like looking back, it was so hard to screw up because you're so ingrained in how to shoot. You know how many times I've shot that like it was all long guns. There was no pistol work, and I kept putting the stock underneath my armpit. And I figured that looks ridiculous. That should work. uh, but it was really it was difficult, and I think it would have been safer if I just said I know how to shoot. Like so, when we would go to the range of his house, keep in mind to tell you how stupid this was. If he and this guy is using drugs, he's very very paranoid. I mean, this guy strip searched me before. Like this guy's that paranoid. Like one minute I'm his best friend, the next minute he goes off on this thing. Like this guy was the scariest guy in that terms of just psychopath type thing. So you never knew which Billy you were going to get. Very charismatic when he's in a group. One-on-one, extremely dangerous. So we would go to the range, and he would always have me go down to put up the targets while he stayed back with the guns. And that's the worst feeling in the world when you turn your back to him and sitting down there putting up targets while he's down there. And I regret, and I should have never ever done that. I didn't tell my handlers that I was doing that. I did that off the books kind of thing. And that, like looking back, that wasn't fair to them. If he had decided to kill me, they would have felt bad. They would have thought it was their fault. And obviously it was just stupidity on my fault. You should never put yourself in this situation. I knew if I told them that I'd get, moved from the case. So that's why I didn't tell them. Stupidity.
Okay, so you've got this relationship, and how do you make your way into the inner circle? Or is there already talk about doing something violent at the DNC?
So as Billy and I get closer, and it's funny because the other people that ran started talking to me and they're like, hey man, you got to try and get Billy off of this kick. He wants to be part of this one underground group, and they're really, really violent. And that's not what we're about, but Billy's a good person. He's just falling into their thing. Billy's not a good person. They're just wrong. But so Billy starts talking to me more and more. As we get closer, he opens up that, these actions that we do, these protesting, they don't do anything. Blocking street does nothing. If you have to do destructive, that's such a good picture. We have to blow things up. We have to do assassinations. And there's an underground group that actually has a book. And that's what they do. Like, you have to kill these people. I remember Billy's big thing was, you know what? We need to start putting bombs in ATMs. So when people go to use them, they blow up. Because if people are scared to use ATMs, that'll really hurt the banks. And that was one of his goals. And so obviously Billy was extreme. And Billy, the college he studied at, he studied environmental chemistry. He taught me so many different ways to make a bomb and different kinds of bombs that unreal. I couldn't even keep up with it. So I knew Billy was going to be somehow connected in, or was pretty confident of that. DNC gets closer. First, there was a stockholders meeting for Bank of America, and I ended up on part of the arrest team purposely. That was, quote unquote, my vetting period is for me to go to jail. that means I am who I say I am. And that turned into a complete shit show. Obviously, communication, like I said, is very, very limited with, hey, that's me being arrested. Um, so communication is extremely limited. It's basically text messages. Our normal communication is they send me a funny meme and I reply back, LOL. That means I'm okay. That was how they knew I was still alive. If they sent a meme and it was something funny and I reply back, that's stupid or something negative, that means I'm in real trouble. Come lights and sirens everywhere you can try to find me. That was the extent of communication most of the time. A week, or actually way more than that, close to a month prior, I had sent a thing, said, hey, I need to get arrested. First response back I get from my handler at one point is like, yeah, that's funny. I was like, yeah, I'm not joking. I need to get arrested, so I'm vetted. And again, I had really, really great handlers. So they were pretty much like, hold on. And they kept it very quiet, got permission, talked to the sheriff. And the sheriff was the only one on the, like, cause I'm on the PD side. Sheriff is a completely different element. The sheriff himself was the only one who knew, and that was just to handle anything with fingerprints. So like coming into the last 2 days, I think it was the day before, the person, like the protesters have different units just like we do. And the arrest unit, the team that's going to go to jail, we had a leader who was telling us what we were going to do to go to jail. And so the original plan is, hey, we're taking the street here at 6 a.m., blocking the street. Most likely you all are going to get arrested. That's going to leave it so everybody else can go flood the street and get in. That was beautiful. I loved that plan so much.
What were y'all going to do to get arrested?
Be the first ones to block the street, go hand in hand to block the street. Nothing major. But hey, it serves a purpose. That was like the best plan I've ever heard in my entire life for all plans. I sent that to my handler and she's like, yep, perfect. We'll arrest you there. And, you know, obviously this is a huge protest. So getting arrested that early right there means I don't get on camera at all. It's just an ideal situation. And I can get out of jail a lot faster that way too. So 6 a.m., boom, we take the street, block it. Bike officers come right in front of us, block us. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to jail. I wasn't that ecstatic about going to jail, but at least it was happening the way I wanted. We are there for about 15 minutes. I'm like, it should not be taking this long. And I'm panicking. Then I see one of the bike officers on his radio, and I can hear it, or I can see his mouth, the 10-4. And I'm like, and they just back off and let us take the street and march up to the bank. And I was so mad. It's unreal at this point. Like I was just steamed because I couldn't figure it out. And I knew if that didn't work, the person who was in charge of me getting arrested was going to elevate to whatever was necessary for me to get to. Like we had to be arrested. So if I had to beat up a cop, that was what it was going to be to get arrested. Like whatever she told me to do, I was going to have to do. And I was like, do they not know the situation they just put me in? Like this is bad. So we get up and we take it. I mean, there are over 1,000 protesters there. And we're huddled near they have the bank gated off and cops obviously all around it. And I'm with the other people getting arrested. I'm like, this is so bad. And so the lady that's handling our arrest comes up and says, all right, you guys are storming Bank of America and going inside. And I was just like, oh, crap. But I was also so peeved that I was like, all right, whatever. So I don't honestly know exactly what I was thinking. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it inside the bank. That became my goal. And so I saw an opening, and I was like, oh, I got this, where two officers were further apart. And I went for that opening, and there was one of the officers was a young officer in good shape. And he did not appreciate me trying to jump the barricade close to him. He had his hands on me and bent over that railing and so fast. That was a little painful. So I got arrested. I was the first one to get arrested, and every news camera was out there. And so I got blown up on TV, which was my worst nightmare. I get to jail, and They photograph you all that. The guy who photographed me said, "Anybody ever tell you look like Charles Manson?" I'm like, gee, thanks. And then another guy goes, "Well, you're famous. You've been all over CNN and Fox News and everything." And my heart sunk at that point. Because that could burn me so bad. And it came close. Like, apparently the intel unit did get a couple phone calls like, "Hey, that was an officer that just got arrested, right?" And they just basically told people, "You shut your mouth and you don't mention that again." So I was in jail for about 12 hours, and it turned dark in that time. And I remember when the magistrate was like, "All right, your bail's been paid." All I could think of, what am I going out to? Like, how bad is the situation? I didn't know if I was going out to a SWAT truck that was going to be taking me to go meet my family to get out of town. I had no idea what the situation was I was going to walk out to. And like I said, it was dark when I get out, and you have so when you get out this door, obviously it's fenced on both sides, and it goes about maybe 50 yards, not that far, probably about 30 yards, until you get to a parking lot where the car was that was there to pick me up. Couldn't see anything besides the headlights of the car, so I couldn't tell anything. So I do the walk of death to the car. And when I get to it, it's a couple people that I got to know from Greenpeace, and a Ram person, and Billy. And they're like, "Come on, we're going home." And Greenpeace had paid my bail to get me out of jail. So I thought that was very nice of them, because I didn't feel like staying in there that long. So luckily I didn't get blown up. The stupid part, and I don't know what made me think this, like, I had been able to text my wife and let her know I was getting arrested. And I said, "I'll come home after I get arrested. I'll come home and see y'all." I to this day, I don't know why I thought I'd be able to do that. But obviously I go back, spend the night at the compound, celebrating with everybody, and never even came close to making it home.
And what was that compound like when you say compound? Is this like a warehouse? Like, what is this?
We had, well, this time we only had one, but when DNC came, we had two. This compound, it had a bunch of little shops, and it's where the RAND office and Greenpeace office were. And then there was like a grass and cement area. And so that was what was called the compound there. So it is warehouse looking, but not like a huge warehouse, kind of medium size. Actually, it wasn't that bad. Besides the concrete floors, I got sick of sleeping on concrete. So that ends. Then I was vetted, and that would have been in May, towards the end of July, right after my birthday and my UC's birthday, which the biggest birthday party I ever had was as a UC. It was by these people, and they threw me a huge birthday party. It was really quite nice. Yeah. But Billy at that point says, "Hey, a couple people are in town now, and I need you to meet them." So I meet him, and then Billy kind of disappears. Like, I still see Billy a lot, but he's not. He's in the back page. Like, he's with the medics a lot, which protesters, there's a group of medics there to handle anything that happens with the protesters. He has no association with these other two people that he introduced me to. And those two are the ones who start talking about doing a bombing at the Democratic National Convention, that they have some people from New York that can bring stuff down, but we need somewhere to put the bombs together. And me, being the nice person I am, said, "Well, I think I can get us a storage unit, and we can put them in there if that works." And so, of course, they love that idea. So I am able to obviously get my hands on a storage unit to get wired up and all that stuff. And so that's the game plan from that point forward. And there's also another plan in place that I was not privy to, actually a couple things, but one of them, they started following everybody, like anybody that I had told them about. They started following them around and having surveillance on them 24/7, open surveillance with marked units. So word had gotten back to the group that's supposed to come down to New York that something's going horribly wrong. Everybody assumed there was a snitch somewhere. Luckily, I was above reproach, and nobody assumed me. They just kept asking me to keep a lookout, that we got to figure out who this is. And eventually, right as DNC is starting, everything is called off to do the bombing. And they don't have the group come down from New York, that they leave them up there. During that time, one of the things that almost got me killed was higher ups in my department were scared to death of Billy, that he was still going to do a bombing. And they put an officer watching him as well, and they waited till he did anything that's an arrestable offense, even remotely. Well, Billy doesn't have a driver's license. His driver's license is revoked. He goes to back out of the green piece. He doesn't actually mean to hit the main road. He's just going to pull a car around so another car can get out. His back tire of the car hits the main road. They let him up and arrest him for driving without a license when it hits the street. And he goes to jail, and they talk to the judge, and I had a few recordings where Billy was talking to me about how to make different bombs and all that stuff. They let the judge know about this, so they get it where he ends up on a no-fly list, and he doesn't get a bond for DWLR. Obviously, everybody is like, how is he not getting a bond for DWLR? And he doesn't have an arrest record. So people are freaking out, and I get it. I'm acting like I'm freaking out in this whole thing. And I actually was, because I did not. I told him there was no reason to arrest. Like, he does not need to be arrested. He's going to have no part of it. I realized that the way this group works, they do the same model as Al-Qaeda. And it's like the same thing I kind of went through. They don't want somebody getting arrested that lives there. Like, he lives in Charlotte. He's going to have no part of this. He is not going to do the bombing in the town he lives. The rest of us were all considered outsiders, because I just came in from a boat and everybody else came in from another city. So that's why we were able to be a part of it. His only function was to get us together. And that way they do the whole thing where 4 people, they don't know anybody. Like, they didn't know the people coming down. They only had a certain number to call. Like, everybody is separated so that people can't rat each other out. That was the whole, like, it's a great model. Give them credit for it.
Yeah, it actually is.
Yeah. So at one point, in order to keep him in jail, they have to publicly release the recordings where he's talking about making bombs if they want to hold him in jail. And I get the call, like, when they want to talk to me, there's a couple of messages for me to get clear to talk. So I get clear to talk, and they tell me this. I'm basically like, you can't do that. I'm dead the minute you do that. I hope you understand that. Either I've got to leave now and get out of Dodge and leave the town, or these can't get released, because I'm done. And I guess this was a little bit prior to the first day of DNC, because the bombing was still a possibility at this point. And they said, well, you can't leave. You have to stay in. I said, well, if I'm in when you release those, understand you will never see me again. I said, there is no way I make it out. That's your choice. And that was the way it ended. So I had no idea at that point if they were going to release it or not. I was so dumbfounded by that. They ended up not. They let him out of jail. I actually was the one who went to go get him. I bring him home. And I remember on the way home, he's like, man, we have to be careful. He goes, there's snitches everywhere. It's like, yeah, but don't you know it?
Yeah.
So that actually, I had to stay till the end of DNC to make sure. I remember, like, after I thought that the bombing was done, I thought I was getting to come home. Like, no, we need you to stay till the end of the DNC. I was like, oh. But luckily, made it through. And it's so funny, when I got to come home, I text my wife, maybe even called her, I don't even remember, but said, hey, I'm coming home. Don't get anywhere near me. I haven't showered in 2 months. I'm going straight up to the shower and trying to get clean. And
did you, before you left, did you provide any type of alibi for leaving town, or what did you tell them?
So you can barely see it, but let's see if I can move my hand. Right there at the very top is a wanted poster.
Oh, got it right here.
Yeah, the most ingenious thing anybody's ever done. My handler came up with this idea to make it perfect for me to disappear. And I had to wait till they said, all right, clean yourself and go home. Clean yourself, meaning make sure you don't have any tails and get home. Meanwhile, they sent the FBI and the PD went out to everybody I know and started showing that post. So say, hey, do you know this guy? Where is he? And so my phone, I was in the shower at home and my phone's blowing up. And I get out and I remember Billy left me this long voicemail. It's like, brother, I love you so much, but you need to get on your boat and go, man. Don't ask questions, just go. I'll always be here for you. You're my best friend. It's like a minute long. And then there were a bunch of other, everybody from Ray and Greenpeace, everybody was blown up. Like, hey, go, get out.
Oh, man.
Great way to get me out there. Worked perfect. Beautiful.
So you spent 2 months away again. You come back home, and I assume that this is causing probably some rough times in your family, right?
Yeah, this was a year gone, a year away.
Or sorry, a year, right? Yeah.
So I pull into the driveway, and and keep in mind, I didn't tell a couple things. When I was under in this case, there was one time I was actually on the interstate, and my wife sent me a text if I could talk, and she knew not to hit my UC phone. So I got worried. So I pulled off on I-77, the one interstate, and called her and said, was everything okay? And she said, I debated whether I was going to tell you this or not, but Caden, that's our son, who's been the perfect child since day one. I mean, legitimately, unreal. There's no way he can be my kid. He's just too perfect. But he all of a sudden has been really sad at daycare and depressed, and basically not eating, not wanting to do anything. And finally, one of the people at daycare said, what's wrong? And he said, I miss my daddy. She tells me this on the phone, and I swear I start bawling on the spot. And first words out of my mouth said, all right, well, I'm coming home. I'll be home in just a little bit. I'll call the handlers and tell them I'm out. I was done. She's like, slow down. She makes a good voice of reason a lot of time. Says, and obviously we knew about the bombing stuff at this point. She goes, I just want you to think about one thing before you do this. If you come home now, you turn away and there is a bombing and it's successful, are you going to be able to live with yourself? And I mean, the answer to that's pretty obvious. And so I was like, as always, you're right. So I sat there, cried on the interstate for a little while longer, and then composed myself and went on to the meeting. But that was one of the hardest moments and just killed me. And then about a few weeks later, she did the same thing. And this time it was, I needed to call you this time. Your mom is in the hospital having surgery. She has uterine cancer. You gotta be kidding me. And I reached out, and she lives in Charlotte, and they tried, my handlers tried to help me. They thought about literally closing the hospital basically and having me go underground to get up to see her. But then even with nurses and everything else, it was just way too big of a liability. And I mean, I agreed. And luckily my mom lived through it. But my wife handled everything there for a while with chemo appointments, everything. The stuff my wife did in that second case is unreal, between taking care of my kid, taking care of my mom, her job, unreal, just unreal. And I'll hear stories today that I had no idea about. There's one where my kid apparently was really sick and got her sick, and she's sitting there holding him in the bathtub so he can throw up in the bathtub and get clean while she's basically right next to the toilet throwing up there. It's just, again, like I said before, I mean, she's the real hero, not me by far.
So you get awarded the Medal of Valor.
I do, yeah. That means the world to me. It was the captain over the intel department wrote the whole letter. And it's funny, it had to be held in a basement, not your typical award ceremony, because you can't really give up a UC type thing. Totally understand that. So they called my name to come get the award and read the whole thing, and like I immediately just go over and give her a hug before I even go anywhere near the stage to get the award. The letter meant just as much as the award did. Like just the fact of somebody understanding like what it was like, and she had done a lot of UC stuff, so she knew some of the impact, and just it was very gratifying.
So after you're given this award, again, this is the second time that you've done a deep undercover type of operation where you've been gone for an extended period of time. Do you take a break? Like, what do you do?
So for this second case, my department, like I said, was outstanding. They got me a therapist. To be honest, I did not click with that therapist and didn't really open up. And some of that's on me, so it is what it is. But they gave me a month off to try to reconnect. It was really difficult. Like I said, my family had learned to cope without me and move on, and had a routine where I was not a part of that routine. And you can't expect them to, just go back to the way things were right out the gate. And my wife and I had to reconnect. I mean, you're talking about years apart, really. That it took a minute. And I mean, I'm beyond thankful that we were able to reconnect and get things back to the way they were, but it was not easy at first by any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing that she, no offense, but that she put up with all that stuff. I meant, I would think that there'd be some resentment if you're puking your guts out while your kid is puking his guts out and you don't get any help.
Yeah, I would agree completely. I think I don't know if it was the first case, if she would have had the same understanding in that sense. I don't like if it were the first case and that's something I think like the situation with my kid saying I need my daddy, I would have bailed. But the second case obviously was different. But she's really good at seeing the bigger picture too. Like she understands. I mean, she's the perfect police wife in that sense because she understands, what the job entails and how hard it can be. And like it's always been our thing that we just figure out a way to make it work no matter, what's going on in her life or mine. We'll make adjustments and get through it. And it's the way you got to be. Like I'll tell anybody that's a rookie officer or a rookie or you just got married, like that is key is, both parties have to be really understanding and open, and you cannot keep secrets. Like that'll be the death of you. I can guarantee it. And there were times where I would wait a few days to tell her different things. Like if they were bad, like when I almost got shot in the head. I don't think I was ready to talk about it that quick, but also let it calm down a little bit before you say things like that. But yeah, there's nothing I would hide from her. I couldn't.
At what point did you talk about leaving Charlotte and going to Florida?
Yeah, things took a turn for me without mentioning names. So the first case, like I finished the second case and the first case is still going on for quite a while. Those cases take a long time and eventually it comes to an end and the mayor of Charlotte gets arrested. The mayor of Charlotte is best friends with somebody in my department who's higher up. And happens to be there when the mayor's arrested. And despite everything we had talked about with the FBI, the first thing the FBI told him was this was all my case, that this was all me. I did all of this. That person from my department obviously was not as keen on that as they might have expected him to be. And I remember the next day I am called for a P test. And then like 2 days later, I'm called for another P test. And P tests, obviously they're testing me for drugs, that kind of thing. And this goes on for a few more times. I call the FBI and say, hey, this is what happened. Well, let us check with our sources. They call me back and say, nah, you're just getting unlucky. at that point, obviously, I realized, all right, I don't really have anybody to back me up here. Um, I had somebody high up in the department who met me away from the department and said, "Hey, just to let you know, they don't like you, and they're if they can't discredit you, I'm not convinced they won't be violent." It's like, all right, appreciate that. And right after that happened, the protesters that I was with, including Billy, put a thing on my UC Facebook that I had back then that since so and so doesn't actually exist using my UC name, we can kill them, right? Because it's not a real person. Uh, Apparently, somebody related to the department let them know that that person was an undercover. Uh, so, like, my wife and I had talked already. Like, we had talked previous to that about moving to the islands, and so that kind of sped up that conversation a little bit. And looked into it, realized that my kid would have to go to private school. Looked at the price of private school and all the islands in the Caribbean, and that did not seem possible. Uh, so ended up looking into the Florida Keys, and my brother said, "Hey, you remember so and so from high school?" Like, yeah, well, they live down in Florida Keys. I think your friends with them on Facebook. Why don't you hit them up? So I did, and actually became my best friend down here. Um, and I'm not joking. Like, talk about God having His hand in it. Uh, we found a place to live, which is impossible to find in the Florida Keys, to rent in under a week. Sold our house in 48 hours from putting it up, and we're gone that fast. And
Oh
moved into the
wow.
Keys. Yeah, like unreal. And ended up jumping on the sheriff's office down here for um, 8 years until I got sick. Uh, and down here, I went in, took a different route for a while, went into major crimes, homicide, and
Were you able to get on major crimes quickly? Did they know about your background and were you able to tell them like because that's got to be impressive if you say, "Oh, I worked with the FBI deep undercover against a Greek mob, and after I was done, I took a short break and then stopped a terrorist threat."
they did know about it. And yeah, I was able to, like, I had to do a little time on patrol, but not very much at all. And then went into major crimes, into homicide.
And so you're in homicide and do you get assigned the case to Stephen Matthew Wolf?
So, and you know what? I used to say something, and somebody corrected me on this, and they are completely right. Um, I I say I have bad luck at Thanksgiving, and I don't feel good saying that because of the victims. So I'm not going to say that, but yeah, the captain picks who the lead detective is going to be, and so the captain picked me for this. Uh, I was technically adjusting my way out of homicide when this happened, and was supposed to be going into HIDA, back into dope work. Um, but this happened the day before Thanksgiving, and what was funny is the captain even joked in the office that day, and I was like, "Oh, it's Thanksgiving. Let's see what happens." Um, like, just that something bad will happen for me, and sure enough, somebody was going fishing, going down a dirt path at this one inlet, and found a dead body of a naked female. And so I respond out, and you know, a lot of times when it's like a dirt path like that, it will be a unfortunately homeless individual that passed away. As soon as they said naked female, I was relatively confident that this wasn't going to just be a homeless person that passed away. Um, I get to the scene and, uh, you know, saw the body. Nothing major stood out, except you could see some marks around the neck. So that's a sign that something's not good. I didn't check the body at that time very thoroughly. Just was looking around the area, and there was a branch broken off of a small tree, not like a big tree, just a small one. But you could tell, you know how it looks when it's freshly broken.
Right.
So you could tell it just happened, and there was a car part, like a piece of a bumper or something, right underneath it. I was like, that's probably important. So I take a picture of it, and Captain tells me, "Hey, so and so from narcotics, who I know, is a huge car person. They may actually know what this belongs to." Now, keep in mind, this piece is like this, right? It's tiny. I think the captain's crazy. That there's just no way. And so I send it anyway, or she sent it. I don't even know if I don't think I'm the one who sent it. She sent it. I go out and start hitting up because it's right before Thanksgiving. I want to get to every bar in the area, restaurant, and get video footage, or we're going to lose it because it'll get too crowded and I won't be able to get it. So that's my main goal. So I start out to do that. This person, this narc, in no time at all, comes back with a picture of a full-size van and says, "This is exactly the van that you're looking for." Uh, he even, not on purpose, but he even accidentally got the color right. Like,
Oh,
the
wow.
picture he sent was identical to the van. Like, to this day, I'm done. I don't know how he was able to do that. I
And
really,
this
really
is a
don't.
conversion van, right?
Yeah. Yep. Um, so he sends that. Then multiple people go out and start, searching all the area for this type of van to see if anybody can find it. My captain and lieutenant are together in a vehicle. They're driving on US 1, and according to the lieutenant, she is saying a prayer to help them find the van. Almost her eyes, and to her left at this, like, it's a little shopping center. At the time it had a Kmart, a McDonald's, a Winn-Dixie. The Winn-Dixie's still there, and McDonald's are. But anyway, she looks, and there's the van, and so she's yelling, "There's the van! There's the van!" And they almost wreck. But anyway, they pull in, sit on it. I come over a little while later. They get marked units in, marked unit approach, um, get the person out, and then I immediately go up to talk to the guy's name is Mr. Wolf. Go up and talk to Mr. Wolf and say, "Hey, Mr. Wolf, how you doing?" I said, "Listen, we just had something in the area. No big deal, but is there any chance you might be willing to come back to the station and talk to me? Because I think you might be able to help me out." He says, "Yeah, absolutely." Pretty calm about it. And he says, "The only thing I said, will you get the dentures out of my van for me so I can talk better?" Absolutely. No issue with that. I walk over to the van. I see the back fender has a piece broken out and also a little bit of a branch stuck in there as well. Like, no way. So I guess dentures. We go back to the station, and for the next 12 hours, I am talking to Mr. Wolf. Keep in mind, this is voluntary. So at any minute, he can stop. And when you're going this long, I have to remind him constantly that you're free to go. I can't just keep it. He's the one doing all the talking, not me. And so he begins to tell me all about his life. Tells me about how when he was 18, he killed this old guy and had to go to prison for a long time for that. And he goes into great depth to my dismay about his time in prison and the things that happened to him in prison and what he did to make prison life better for him, all sexual related, which turned out to be key. And then about how when he got out of prison, he had to take care of his mom, and about what he had to do to take care of his mom, which was pretty grotesque. And guessing to a degree here, but I believe it helped develop him a hatred of females. And he had some homosexual underlies in there. And he became very, very fond of me. Like, he really, really liked me a lot. He would never confess to the crime. He finally admitted that, yes, she was killed in his van, but that there was another guy that was with him, and he's the one who killed her. When I asked him to describe the person, he literally described himself, but put a crescent moon tattoo on him. That was the only thing different. It was just unreal. And like, there was one point we went out for a cigarette break to let him smoke, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and he goes, "I really don't like it when people put their hand on my shoulder." And I thought I screwed up a little bit. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He goes, "No, I like it when you do it." And I was like, "Oh," he said he didn't like it because of things that happened in prison. It was so disturbing.
So do you play into that, or what do you do?
I
Or
mean,
you
I
just
keep the rapport between us. And then at one point in the interview, like somebody had come in and basically said, I forget if it was my captain or whoever said, I'm going to have to work all Thanksgiving until I guess I told him that, listen, I got to work all Thanksgiving if I don't have the evidence. And he goes, I really don't want to see you miss Thanksgiving with your family. I'm like, well, it's the job. I can't really help it. Like, didn't blame him. Just said, yeah, it is what it is. And he goes, all right, I'm going to tell you where all the evidence is so you don't miss Thanksgiving with your family. And he literally told me the dumpsters around town where the evidence was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously he's arrested. I go to trial on the case. And so, you know how it is. I take the stand. I have to explain to the jury why I'm so nice to him, why I'm doing these different things. Basically, I have to gain his trust. I need him to be honest with me. I can't have him lying. And so that's why I built this report and all this. So basically with, him in the seat over there while I'm on the stand saying, oh yeah, I'm just playing. Pretty much is what I'm saying. I get done testifying, get up, and while the jury's still there, I'm walking back, and Mr. Wolf yells, Matt, I'm so sorry I put you through all this. Like,
He yells that in open court.
In open court. I could not believe it. Every member, obviously he was found guilty. Every member of the jury said he should get the death penalty. And the judge ended up agreeing, and he's on death row right now.
And this is Florida, where they actually kill people.
Yeah. It is one of the first times in Florida, or the very first time, according to the state attorney, that every member of the jury said, yes, he needs a death penalty.
And he is a suspected serial killer because he's killed 2, right?
Yeah, 2 confirmed. I would bet my house there's quite a few. Even when I talked to him, he talked about his travels and people not knowing where he was, and this van that he lived in, traveling all over. It's the perfect setup. There was other females' underwear in the van. Yes, I think we got DNA, if I recall correctly, but there are no matches at this time. Not his DNA, not her DNA, but we don't know whose.
So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a 40-year gap between when he was 18 and when Michelle was found.
That's correct. And for most of this period, there is no, like, if you try to track him, there's no tracking him. He's off the radar.
And that's kind of what people say about Ted Bundy and some of the more notorious serial killers. Yeah. When they have these periods of transient time, and that they constantly are hunting, essentially, there's going to be logically more bodies than we know about.
Correct. And also another key thing in this one. So the victim in this case, the medical examiner who used to work at Miami-Dade, said it's the most horrific he's seen. I know I talked about strangulation. He did strangle her some. That's not how she died, though. He stuffed objects in both her vagina and anus that were so big it caused her to bleed out from that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a very horrific way to die. Like, this guy's a monster. You don't go to that extreme from on your first or second murder. Like, there's always a progression, and for it to be this, and he would have been fine. Like, he would have been good to go if it wasn't for that car part and an incredible detective that knew what car that belonged to. Because otherwise, he, like we said, where we got him, he even told me he was getting ready to leave town. And if he had left, I don't think the evidence that we would have never gotten the evidence he ended up giving me. Like, it was in dumpsters that would have never been thought to look. They would have ended up going away, and to think it would have never happened.
Has there been any effort to re-interview him about additional murders, or have they tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, you and him have such a good rapport?
Not yet. My understanding is he is not talking at this point. Like, he's not a happy cowboy with the system. That's my understanding. But I also know he has an appeal coming up. Obviously, they have state mandated appeals for homicide. So I'm sure his lawyer would be telling him, don't talk at this time. whether they are looking to try to do some kind of plea where, hey, we'll take the death penalty off the table if you'll tell us, any other victims. That I don't know.
And so after this investigation, do you continue with law enforcement, or when do you get out?
So I did. I switched over to HIDA dope cases again, and then in 2022, like, keep in mind, I hadn't slept for about 10 years. Getting a half an hour to an hour of sleep a night was a good night for me. And I knew it was having an effect. I didn't want to listen. Funny because I tell my wife, God was telling me when I got down here that I needed to be done with law enforcement, but I wouldn't listen. And 2022, in May, I got COVID. In June, I got shingles. And then August, I got a nose sinus infection, which was never first time in my life I ever had one of those. Went into my eye, and then went into my ear, and then dropped down into my lungs. And when it got into my lungs, my body wouldn't fight it. I went down to like a 30% lung capacity. Like, it would take me about an hour to walk 400 meters. Doctors said, it's done. Your law enforcement's done. This is your new norm, all that kind of thing. So I ended up retiring out at that point. Doctors were trying to figure anything out because my body just would not respond. Like, nothing was working. They were putting me on so many different medications. I was on constant steroids. I jumped up to like 270 pounds. It was bad, and I just wasn't moving. And I remember March of 2023, I couldn't hang out with my kid pretty much because I couldn't walk anywhere. I was at my wit's end and said, no, this isn't going to be. And said, you know what, this is either going to kill me quickly or I'm going to beat it. Those are the two options. So started getting help from a therapist. They actually got me sleeping through the night, which was incredible. I started working out, and since I was sleeping through the night, I didn't automatically get sick. In between all of that, like, I beat the lung thing. My lungs are actually probably right now the best they've ever been in my entire life. And I'm in the best shape I've probably been since the academy. I'm the same weight I was now in the academy. And I'd always kept in good shape, obviously, especially the type of work I did. That was kind of important. But like, my mental health I was diagnosed then with PTSD. No surprise there. I was taught EMDR. That's been awesome. And just some different meditation stuff, talking about it. I went 10 years where I didn't talk about it at all. And that took its toll. That is the one thing for anybody that's new in law enforcement or any first responder. You have to talk. You have to find someone that you can talk to. If you're holding things in all the time, it's not going to be good for you. If you need someone to talk to, you can always call Copline. Copline is awesome. Huge fan of them. And basically they are just there to listen. So, but yeah, so I went really, really downhill there for a while. And once I got all that straightened out, I actually have now found my way back into acting, and I'm loving it. I couldn't be happy.
Which is actually funny because you started acting before you were a police officer, right?
Yeah, I fell into it then too. Like, I actually fell into it in Wilmington, North Carolina, which you probably relate to. That was when Dawson's Creek and all that was there.
Yeah.
And I went to go be an extra because I heard this cool thing that you could pay $50, or you could, I'm sorry, not pay $50, get paid $50 and be in a movie in the background. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? So I signed up. I went to Think Cannon Associates to sign up then. They're like, have you ever thought about acting? I was like, well, no. But so, here's a list of the agents we use. You might want to give them a call. You have a good look for it, that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. I called a couple of them up, got signed by two of them. One gave me lessons on method acting, and I fell in love with it, like, which probably is partially what helped me in Undercover, to be honest. And like, I didn't even think about it when I like, part of it was just obviously my mind was scrambled when I finished my law enforcement. But somebody else had brought it up to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so ended up getting back involved in the Miami game and got back into acting, got an agent again. And yeah, having a great time.
That's such an amazing career and amazing life, and that's even more incredible that your wife has stayed by you this entire time. That's extremely impressive. Maybe the most impressive thing out of the entire story.
Yeah.
Um, so, looking back, any regrets on this, or
No, I have issues with the first case that I will keep to myself, I guess, in that sense. But um, I look back because I've asked myself that sometimes. Well, especially like everything else, absolutely, there's nothing I would do different. The first case, the outcome was not what it should have been. If I would have known at the beginning that the main person arrested would have been the mayor of Charlotte, uh, I'm not sure I would have done that. Like the outcome wasn't worth the sacrifice in that one.
what was? I mean, overall, do you think that all those sacrifices were worth it? When you
Uh,
look at your career in totality.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, look, is there any way that we can support you through this? We've gone about 2 hours and 10 minutes. You've been awesome. I've been highly entertained. I'd love to have you back on to maybe talk some more about some of your cases. How can we support you?
Follow me on Instagram if you want. That's one of the best ways. And um, right now, I'm working with a ghostwriter on a book, and she just finished or is about to finish the second rough draft. Uh, and as soon as that goes out, I'll be posting it all over my Instagram and stuff. So that'll be the best way. Just if you like what you heard, just follow along with what I got going on. I do have some other stuff in the works, but I'm not open, unfortunately, to talk about it yet. But I'm very excited about it, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, your life can easily be a Netflix show. Sincerely, especially the whole corruption thing with the mayor and whatnot. I mean, that's incredible. Um, I'll throw this one out. Who would you like to play you?
Wow, you're not the first person to ask. So, well, me first of all, I want to play myself, but unfortunately, I can't go back in time to play the young me. I don't know who. Like I thought, like, and people are gonna laugh at me for this, like Tom Holland, because he fits the age well, and,
Okay.
he's a good actor. That could be a good one. If it wasn't like my favorite actor that I would love to see play the role because of his ability, Woody Harrelson. I love Woody Harrelson. Um, like
Yeah, True Detective. Like,
yeah,
just,
oh yeah.
yeah,
Like he can play like the way he like even like Zombieland and the way he was back in Cheers. Like he has
right.
such range, it's phenomenal. But I'm afraid he's a little old too.
You know what? Makeup can do a lot of good things.
You're not wrong.
All right. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and thank you sincerely for all the sacrifice that you and your family have made to make North Carolina safer and our country safer. So thank you for that and your service. If you want to support me, you can start off by liking and subscribing to Santana True Crime. You can also become a member now for $1.99. And you can buy my book, A Murder on Campus, A Professor, the Cop, in North Carolina's Most Notorious Cold Case. I wrote that with my brother, Dr. Brian Santana. You can get that at Amazon, Kindle, Audible, Barnes Noble, anywhere where you can buy a book. And I hope people are going to be looking forward to Santana True Crime's 31 Nights of Halloween. We're going to be doing an episode every day in October. So I think about 13 live episodes. The others will be pre-recorded, but hopefully people will tune in for that. I'm looking forward to it. Matt, thanks again.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
And good night.
Take care now.